You all for the Uptrend, which is essentially Inbox Monster hosting our fun and smart email geek friends to talk about topics that should be top of mind for everyone in our world. And this topic today, I'm very excited about. This is a different kind of conversation about AI than we've heard talked about in the email industry. So this definitely fits with the trend, and I'm really excited to talk about how AI impacts the customer experience in the inbox. Y'all keep shouting us out over here in the comments too. So first, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Laura Sullivan. I work at Inbox Monster, and we are a platform that helps pre-send and post-send brands just send more epic emails. And I'm joined by the lovely Beth Kittle. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to be here. I'm Beth Kittle. I'm an email deliverability consultant with Twilio SendGrid. I started out on the abuse and compliance side of email, and now I help our customers land their emails in the inbox. So excited to talk about how AI is impacting your emails today.
Absolutely. And I will brag on Beth that she has been doing some awesome original research on this topic. And I haven't found a lot of information on this particular topic, but she's been doing some really cool research. And we've actually been collaborating a little bit using the Inbox Monster platform. And I've been creating all kinds of different types of emails and sending them over for her to analyze. So a lot of our insights today are coming from some of her great research. So very excited about that. So just to kind of lay the groundwork today of what we're going to talk about, first, I have to do it. We have to talk about some of the epic inbox fails because they're so funny and because they tell us why we should care about this topic. Your brand is most likely impacted, and things can go pretty terribly wrong, sometimes hilariously wrong. So we're going to look at some of those, and then we're just going to walk step by step through the different ways that your emails may be changed or interpreted by Apple Intelligence, by Gemini, and then with extractions, which is Yahoo and Google. And then, of course, we're going to kind of break it down. And from a creative perspective, I'll take some of the takeaways. And from a deliverability perspective, Beth will give us some takeaways. So please chat us up, ask questions, commiserate, express yourself in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on it. And after each section, we'll kind of address any questions or thoughts that you all may have. So let's talk about AI. And I think we wanted to be really clear, lots of marketers have been talking about AI, obviously, to write better subject lines, to create imagery, saving thousands and thousands of dollars by using AI generated imagery, to help their workflow, to help with personalization. We're all for it. Like, send smarter, better emails. What we're talking about today is not that. It's how the mailbox providers are using AI and how that is interfering or changing your emails.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've all had this directive at our companies to use AI to streamline our processes, create content, and so on. But what I've seen less chatter about is how, major mailbox providers are already using AI and how today your emails are definitely impacted by this. And these are major brands like Apple, Gmail, and Yahoo. So we want to give you some sneak peeks into how AI is impacting your email previews and email summaries.
Absolutely. And, as an email maker, as a former email maker, I also think about how much time and love marketers and creatives put into email. You may go through all these rounds of edits and get really deep into your personalization. And it just is like, that at the final mile, maybe your email is being changed or misinterpreted, and you don't know about it. So that kind of gets me too. So first of all, the fails, got to do it, right? And I think there's a couple of buckets. I've been collecting this swipe file of different fails just because it's funny and because it really opens your eyes about why you should care. And really, one of the major categories is discount codes. So in this case, boring mattresses, awesome brands, very funny brand. They're having a 100% off sale, which is great. I hate to be the person who sent that email, but obviously that was not their intention. And Apple Intelligence here pulled out a code that probably wasn't the right code. So that is very unfortunate. I think you have another example here.
Yeah, I'm going to have tons of examples like this. I've been telling everyone that AI really puts your email goodies on blast, specifically the pre-open previews that we'll talk about a little later on. A lot of our subject lines are about pushing people to open an email to get to that discount code. We want folks clicking to get that discount code so we can track that activity. But unfortunately, there are scenarios where the coach is being pulled right into the preview, and you could, as a consumer, bypass and engaging with the email completely and just use that code, which creates a problem down the line for engagement tracking.
Absolutely. And, I've always heard the advice your subject line and your pre-header, they should work together to get the open. And, one could be mysterious and tease a reveal on the other side. Well, that's obviously out the window here. So very important point. The other kind of category that is very painful for me to say is brand voice. So, email is a great channel to have a voice, to be personal and connect with your audience individually. But sometimes things get very confusing. So in this case, Gemini says Apple Watch motivates to stay active and healthy, and penguins are extinct. Those two things don't know how they go together, but somehow they do. So obviously, like trying to be funny sometimes could backfire on you. I have tons of other funny examples of this, and it pains me to say that brand voice maybe is something that takes a back seat. The other category that is maybe a little more serious is that personal and sensitive information are also being pulled into these previews and summaries. So in this case, this is CoinSpot. It says bank account details updated. Ignore if not you. Like, what should I do here? So it's a little bit alarming as a consumer. And this is another example. This is kind of a whole rich category of conversation. But in this case, this is a spoofing email from Spotify. And it looks perfectly valid with this Apple Intelligence pre-open preview. Like, oh, my Spotify payment is in trouble. I don't know if that's, lending a little bit of credibility to this spoofing email, or it may create a sense of urgency because it's a priority email. But obviously, that can be pretty dangerous. So a little bit scary for our audiences and something to keep an eye on as a brand.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think a whole nother webinar episode should be, AI is being used by scammers and phishers as well. So yeah, as a consumer, definitely be extra cautious here.
Sure, keep an eye out as a brand as well.
Yeah, and so this one kind of piggybacks off my last point where because so many things are being pulled into email previews directly in the inbox, engagement waters could be muddied down the line. Consumers are going to start using these technologies more and more, and they may change how they interact with emails. And one of the things that I'm seeing is, there are scenarios where you can engage with an email without actually opening or clicking anything. Do you want to cut out that, person in your audience who's reading your emails, just not in the traditional way? No, of course not. So if I could highlight one thing from a deliverability perspective throughout this presentation, for me, it's all about continuing to ask permission to send to recipients that appear inactive. That's going to become more and more important as these major mailbox providers improve inbox experience and privacy experience for their customers.
Such a good point. Wow, something I didn't even think about. Yeah, you're not triggering your engagement series. You're not triggering your follow-up communications. You're not counting these folks in your engaged subscriber list. Oh, it's a whole host, a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
So we're going to go now and walk step through step by the different interpretations and just show you a ton of examples. So you kind of know exactly what we're talking about, and how things are being interpreted, how your emails are being interpreted. And in the Apple Intelligence example, there's a pre-send summary and there's a post-send summary. Is that right?
Well, pre-open, post-open. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Pre-open. I'm used to saying sends. Great. Well, let's kind of dive into this one.
Yeah, sure. So for this presentation, we kind of came up with a grading scale of how impactful these different technologies are based on how widespread we think their use is. It's a little hard to tell, but I wanted to walk through some of the Apple Intelligence numbers that we know. So first off, Apple Intelligence is currently only on iPhone 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max, and iPhone 16. If you have one of those phones and iOS 18 or above, you can turn on Apple Intelligence features. If you're on 18.3 and above with a compatible phone, it's actually turned on by default. So currently, we don't think the impact is huge. However, there are people that just buy their new phones and don't ever mess with the settings, and they keep these on by default. So we do think it's going to be growing. Right now, 36% of the iPhones on the market in use today are eligible for Apple Intelligence. And as of last month, 82% of compatible phones were running iOS 18. And I did read that part of the reason that this OS update has been so popular and adapted so quickly is because people are interested in using those Apple Intelligence features. So we do think it's going to grow. But again, I don't think it's super widespread currently.
Gotcha. But only going up from here, all the
Yeah.
signs would point to that.
Yeah.
That's a super interesting number, the 82%. I feel like I'm the person who's never updating my iOS, but I totally updated this one because I wanted to play with Apple Intelligence.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
sure there's a lot of people in IKEA.
Yeah. Cool.
So what does this look like?
Yeah. So as Laura said, Apple Intelligence has two different areas of impact on your email. One is pre-open, so the inbox previews, and one is post-open. So I'll walk through some examples of those. We looked at emails with Apple Intelligence enabled and not enabled. So what you're looking at here is on the top screenshot. This is an example of a SACS email prior to Apple Intelligence being turned on. So you have a good play of subject line and pre-header text, user exclusive code at checkout. Again, that's really hopefully enticing this recipient to open and click in the email. But once we turn on Apple Intelligence on this email, we see some of the goodies exposed, right? 10% off at purchase, and it exposes the sales code for you. One of the things that I've been thinking about personally with this, and I'm not on the marketing side, but I think, when you're running a promotion on, let's say, a podcast or something, you're going to want to use a promotional code that's super easy to remember, right? So summer 20% or summer 20 off. I think to maybe bypass this issue of people just seeing the code in the email preview and going directly to the website, maybe keep the code a little more complicated. Again, I'm not on the marketing side. That's up to your team, how you want to look at that. However, I know personally as a consumer, if I see a numerical code or something that's like 12 characters long, I'm not going to type in by hand. I'm going to go into the email and click to be sent directly to use that code. So just food for
Yeah,
thought.
that's a very clever idea, definitely. And I think it's been beaten into us, like, make it so easy that people can't forget, but like, you might want to flip the script on that. Yeah.
So in this next example, this I think is a really great kind of example of brand voice being lost and pre-header text being discarded. So we have Duluth Trading, this top sample here. The pre-header text is get ready to get hands-on. You're eligible for 15% off your first order. That's definitely making me curious, making me want to open the email. And then we see what happens in the Apple Intelligence enabled version. They got the 15% off part right. And then everything else is just stuff that seems like it's being pulled from the footer of the email. So email notifications are available, and here's the contact number. Again, important things to have in your email, but that's not the content that a recipient's going in there looking for. So we really see an example here of someone creating really nice, cohesive pre-header text, and it just kind of gets lost here.
Absolutely. And gets replaced by something that was the last priority in the email,
Totally.
maybe it was legalese even. So not exactly what you want to entice the open. Yeah,
Yeah.
no bueno.
Yeah, and this is really just a same kind of example, brand voice being lost, pre-header text going away. This Nordstrom sample says, "We couldn't wait to say hi" as a subject line. Then "You're going to love shopping with us." Pretty straightforward, introduction type email. And then in the post Apple Intelligence enabled version, we see that it pulls in the terms of service. I don't know about you, but that's not what I'm looking for in my email summary.
No.
I think we'll see probably later on, and when we show off our research, that this is likely a case of Apple Intelligence not seeing enough live or HTML text in the email. And so it's
Yes.
pulling what it does see in HTML text, which is the footer. So we'll have some
Yeah,
design tips for you coming up here.
absolutely. Okay, so now post open. This gets pretty interesting. So, the big thing for me is the pre-header text is somewhat ignored. And then visually, from a design perspective, all your content is getting pushed way down. And I have seen cases where it's longer than this, even 6, 8 lines. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so this is what an email looks like post open with Apple Intelligence enabled. You can see that top right button says summarize. So this does require someone to take action. However, you'll hit summarize, and then usually you get 2, 3 sentences summarizing the email. And what we've seen in our testing is these, especially with Apple Intelligence, these summaries don't often turn out great. There are
Mhm,
some content creation best practices that'll help.
mhm.
But graphical text and alt text we have found are usually outright ignored.
That's the biggest bummer. Not to spoiler alert, but the biggest bummer from our testing, which we'll jump to, is just that you're just hoping that your alt text is going to do some heavy lifting, and it doesn't look like it is for these
Yeah.
previews. So, without further ado, then we can look at just these little tests that we've been creating to try to understand what the best practices are. So, this is my uh, first, congrats, you did your first project email. We chose something extremely simple because we didn't want it to be too complicated, wanted to see how things would go. So this is just my simple, cute little email triggered
Mhm.
upon the first project being created. And then I did a few different versions of this and sent a test to the Inbox Monster platform where you can see your post open summary right there. So the first example on all the way on the left, I was a bad email geek and I had a single image, no live text, no alt text.
Yeah. So I asked Laura to create some of these bad samples for me to see what happened. And you can see in that first example, the summary, which is that first sentence you see right under one message, it really is just reading the subject line. First creative project is in and things are looking good. Cool.
Which is a total throwaway because you've already seen that because you opened the
Right.
email. Yeah, so it's just a total throwaway of
Yeah.
space.
Absolutely. And then I'll speak to how well you did the alt text on the next sample. Laura had like, I think 2 or 3 sentences because we really wanted to test like, what if we feed alt text that is super verbose? What's going to happen to that preview or that summary, I should say.
Still an image only email too,
Yeah.
with lots of rich alt text. And I think this is probably the biggest bummer of all
Yeah.
that it really didn't help.
Yeah.
It just added, oh, there's contact information and links here. Okay, that didn't really tell me anything about the contents of the email. So, I mean, I think the takeaway for both of us is probably do not ignore alt text. It's important for so many reasons, but it's not going to be a silver bullet in this particular case.
Right. For sure. Like always use alt text. It's the best practice for so many reasons, accessibility being one of them. But you can't rely on it for making your Apple Intelligence summaries better. I think this is another example where the contact information and links provided, that's just pulling random stuff from the footer that's not super important to the content.
Yep, exactly what I thought. And then this next example, it was a really balanced mix of, it was actually my email. I do want to say for the record, my real email, a balanced mix of images with alt text and live text. And I think this is the resounding winner.
Mhm.
Definitely descriptive. It tells you exactly what's in the email. There's lots of good insights waiting. And then after that, there's collaboration and diagnostic tools. So this is like exactly what we want to say to our people. If they're going to read a summary, we want them to read this summary.
Yeah.
So
For sure. Yeah, and I love what we did with the last one, and I'm gonna hype you up, Laura. This was your idea because Laura's been so bummed by the loss of brand voice and all of this, right? So she had the idea, can we use emojis to convey playfulness or humor without altering the summaries in a weird way? And yeah, Laura, I'll let you talk about the results there.
yeah, I mean, it seems like it worked. The actual summary hasn't changed. It's not like heart phase.
Yeah.
Do that. It didn't change it to something strange, but I think it did convey some excitement. So I definitely think using emoji is a great way to keep your brand in your email and not interfere with that Apple Intelligence. So
Yeah.
could be a good takeaway.
Yeah, for sure.
Or another test, maybe another test. Okay, the takeaways here, I'll read through them quickly because we have a lot of other good content to get through. But basically, beware of engagement, um, you know, your trackable engagement being lost. And definitely don't be afraid to ask permission to send or ask people if they want to hear from you. Say goodbye to pre header tags, it's not going to be reliable. Your subject lines, maybe they need to be a little bit more direct and include more of the information. Alt text and graphical text or graphics cannot improve Apple summaries, unfortunately, according to our research. And consider if your emails are being pushed down, consider that your most important content should always be at the top. I have a lot of controversial feelings about the fold and if it exists or not, but this definitely gives you reason to prioritize those important images and information. And then, obviously, nice to know that this best practice still exists. Live text and images, a mix, a healthy balance of them is always going to be recommended. Emoji could be a way to keep your brand voice. And then just test for impact on brand voice, test for everything. That's always our takeaway. So that is Apple Intelligence. We're going to move on to Gmail Gemini, which is a little
Yes.
bit less to say about this one, truly.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can get through this one pretty quickly. In my mind, the deliverability impact and the design impact are significantly lower for Google Gemini. And that's partly because it works pretty well. And currently, from what we've seen, Gemini always requires a prompt. So there's no like automatic pre-open previews happening. You have to ask it to do something. Now, backing up from that, Gmail is huge, right? For most B2C senders, anecdotally, my clients are like between 50 and 80% of their list, maybe is Gmail. So I hesitate to say anything Gmail does is low impact. However, it's not super widespread right now. We do see that Gemini for Gmail is free in some Google Workspace accounts. So you may be seeing this in your own work accounts currently. But for a lot of consumers, it's pay to play. So when I was testing, I was paying $20 a month for my Gemini package. And that includes a whole host of kind of creative and research tools. And I think really that's where people are paying for their use. I doubt many people are doing it just for the Gmail inbox management. In fact, I read a study that reported only about 20% of Gemini users are using it for productivity, as opposed to 70 using it for creative and research purposes. So again, 1 star on impact for this one.
Just 1 second, my screen got messed up on me. You can keep going. Sorry, my screen's just gone black on me, of course.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, so for Gemini, the consumer use cases for it are kind of sky's the limit. So are we able to go to that next slide?
Yep, I got it. Sorry, I
Perfect.
lost y'all.
Yeah, no worries. It's not a webinar without a little technical hiccup, right?
Totally.
So I just brought some samples in of stuff I was playing around with in my own inbox. Of course, I could do simple things like help you find your unread emails or help you do something like technically in your inbox. One of the fun uses I've had for it is having it find my best deals. So that's a potential, win for marketers. I can prompt what's my best deal of the week, and you can see that second sample it just lists them all out in order of like percentage off. You can also interact with emails without opening them at all. So I have in my own personal inbox been using them to do things like summarizing newsletters from like the Washington Post, things that are, maybe I don't want to read the whole article, but I want a little summary of it. So I think it's really helpful that way. I don't see a whole lot of people using those types of summaries for promotional emails though.
That makes sense. Adam had a good question in the chat. He was wondering if the blue box summaries that Gmail have been using are the same. And I do believe they are, Adam. I was researching this. I have them in my workspace. So I'm not sure if the consumer version and the workspace version are appearing a little differently. But mine also appear in my workspace in the blue box. So
yeah, and I think another thing that people are probably seeing in their inboxes are those like delivery updates and things like that, those update cards.
yeah.
That we're not talking about that specifically here. However, I think it's all the same engine, pulling that content out.
Yeah, and we're going to get to annotations in just a few minutes, which is a totally different ball game of things being pulled out here. Yeah. Okay, next fun test, which actually gave us some kind of surprising and interesting results. So in this case, we chose a more complex inbox monster email that had multiple topics. There wasn't a clear, weight here. And so we wanted to see how Gemini would treat these and if it would turn into any kind of gobbledygook or get run together. And it was very interesting. So very similar to last time, version all the way on the left. I was a bad email marketer and I sent an image only email, no live text, no alt text. And what we found was, drumroll, really a great job of summarizing my email without those things, which is very surprising. So I think that kind of tells us that Gemini is doing a pretty good job reading images within an email. Not telling you to use image-based emails only, but this does show you that if you have images in an email, they're all going to be accounted for, which is super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I was so surprised by these results. If you look at all three across, the summaries are pretty identical. I was expecting more variation like Apple Intelligence. And to Laura's point, we're not telling you to throw best practices out the window. Design best practices still apply here. But it's kind of the overall takeaway is we don't have to worry so much about how Gemini is going to treat our emails from a design perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you have those visual supporting elements, you can rest assured that they're probably going to be accounted for, which is great. So in the other versions, we've got, an image-based email with detailed alt text, almost identical, and then that good, healthy balance of images and live text. And again, I was very surprised that these all look pretty similar. So, takeaways here definitely like, whoa, graphical text is being read. Okay, nice. So, the design implications are maybe a little bit less. In multiple topics, Gemini outperformed Apple Intelligence in terms of being correct in its summaries.
Yeah.
And then the deliverability impact, it sounds like Beth, you believe is low at this time just because of the multiple hoops that people are jumping through.
Yeah, multiple hoops. And again, at least before B2C Gmail addresses get it free or cheaper, I don't think
Sure.
we're seeing super widespread impact right now.
Gotcha. Awesome. So, someone said Gemini over Siri. I agree with
Agree.
that.
Agree.
Second that notion. Okay, this is actually where this gets a little bit fun. So, automatic extractions are super interesting. And, we're talking here about both Yahoo and Gmail auto extractions because they're pretty similar, at least on the back end of how they're set up. And, this is interesting. So tell me a little bit about how this works.
Yeah, so automatic extraction, you've probably seen this in your inbox if you have a Gmail or Yahoo, personal account. This is essentially a technology that scans specifically promotional emails and pulls out key content features. So images, discount codes, any kind of sales details. And one of the things that I really kind of highlight here is it'll pull out destination URLs. So in the example on the top right there, where you see Brooks running, you see those images, you can click on those images and automatic extraction is going to have some kind of URL behind it that they'll guide you to. And it's not always the URL that you want the recipient to go to. So that's
Mm,
problem number one. Problem number two is, again, that can create tracking problems because if someone's clicking content straight from the preview, you're not getting that good open or click data from the email. So email attribution errors abound here.
absolutely. And I think the most interesting part about this is very widespread. It's happening to your emails, whether you like it or not, especially if you have emails going to the promotions folder in Gmail and you're that kind of B2C sender. This is 100% impacting your emails. So,
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, like if there is an engine behind Yahoo and Gmail figuring out which emails they're going to randomly do auto extractions for, we don't know what it is. So it is a bit random. Not all of your promotional emails will have automatic extraction applied. However, if you are a promotional sender, you can pretty much assume that at least some of your emails are being impacted by this. And one of the reasons we rated this as so widespread is that brands can't turn it off and recipients can't turn it off. So it is just happening, hence the name automatic, right? We do have
mm,
suggestions on how to push back on this that we'll talk about in a moment here. But yeah, automatic extraction, I think, is impacting everyone right now.
mhm, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk through what this actually looks like and what the challenges are.
Yeah, for sure. So you probably recognize this screenshot from earlier in the presentation. This is just an example of, again, email goodies on blast, codes being pulled out. But I wanted to show a little more in depth, like how it works. So I opened the email and was trying to figure out, okay, where's this code coming from? Obviously, LL Bean wants you to go through their flow that they've set up really nicely here. Don't forget your 10% off, click to redeem. It's like the number one action. All your attention goes there, right? Um,
Mm,
I dug through this email to find the code, and it's in tiny, tiny text in the footer. So that's where they're
mm,
getting it. But pulling a code from the footer means the recipient's not going to go click on that link that's trackable and gives us so much good information about the recipient, right? So that's kind of challenge number one of this type of automatic extraction.
absolutely. My gosh. Okay, what's challenge number two here?
Yeah, so this is all three of these images are from the same email. I'll just walk through kind of what's going on here. So Wolf and Badger, they're a clothing and lifestyle brand, and they had this funky image get pulled into their preview where it's just like a checkout counter from their London store, and then like weird grayed out images, just not super attractive in the inbox, right? So I went into the email, and you can see the full email on the right there. And I see the hero image, and then you can see that automatic extraction just seemingly randomly pulled the second image in the email, which seems to be pretty consistent in my own like research. It seems like hero image is ignored, and then something else random is pulled in, oftentimes the second image. You can see too that the call to action in the actual emails are shop women, shop men, those like black buttons in there. That's
Mhm.
where the brand wants you to go with this email, right? But if you click on the image in the preview, you actually get sent to the London store destination URL. So that's the image in the middle there. So again, all kinds of email attribution errors. You're pulling in weird, not necessarily advertising type content, and issues.
Yeah, as a brand, you've got this rich, I mean, obviously they're trying to tell a story with the imagery of this artisan, handcrafted goods by showing this really close up image. And then the most bland possible image is pulled into the inbox and
Yeah,
into
all
the
gray.
annotation. Yep, just all gray and bland.
Yes.
So, yeah, big missed opportunity there. Um, Okay, so I think the good news here, though, we've given like all of the gloom and doom up front. The good news is that there is something that you can do about it, and that is taking control of your own annotations, which is very exciting. And this is done through a schema markup on the back end. And I've done it before with teams, and it's not that much of a heavy lift if you truly are building it into your workflow. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can go and do a full image carousel and choose different thumbnail images. You can choose different CTA buttons, or you can just select your image that you want to use. So I like that it's not all or nothing, and it's just something that you can build into your workflow. Um,
Yeah, I'm so happy that you have that perspective of having used it. It's been around for a long time, honestly,
yeah.
since Gmail introduced the promotional folder. They kind
Yep.
of, a lot of marketers didn't like that. So Gmail said, well, here's this other thing that you can do to make your emails stand out in the promotional folder, right?
Sure.
And you can see in these examples, it looks beautiful when it's well done. Like when the marketer's done it intentionally. And I should mention like Gmail annotations and schema, it's essentially the same thing. It's the same sort of code base.
Yeah.
But you can see, like, I love this example from Halara. The whole thing is cohesive, right? You have your 50% off subject line, you have that tag saying it expires in 5 days, and then the image matches all of that. You can tell this was like purposely, intentionally put together. So
Mhm.
I really recommend any promotional sender to use schema to gain control back into the previews.
Absolutely. Oh, this is the moment. If you were on the fence about it before, just knowing that your emails are going to be brought in this way, and you're not going to have very much control over it. This is your moment to take back control. So yeah, no brainer. um, cool. So the takeaway from this section, again, email attribution and engagement, definitely some muddied up issues here. There could be attribution errors. You could be sending folks to the wrong location altogether if you have a particular product page or some page you're trying to send them to. And then the big takeaway from this section is, of course, if you can't beat them, join them. Take back control over how your emails are seen with Gmail annotations or using the schema.org markup in Yahoo. So um, I think that is all, is all of the ways your emails are being interpreted. It seems like a lot. And I think this is always changing, right? I mean, this is something that even, in the few months that we were in between the two pieces of research that we did, there were changes, particularly in Gmail. So it's always changing. And for me, one big conclusion among many is to always be testing. this stuff. So test away. And, just in terms of the takeaways, we'll break it down by creative and by deliverability. But I think my big takeaways, as someone making emails, and I hate to say this so much, is that clarity is going to be more important than brand voice at this moment. So, a cheeky headline can be misinterpreted. And so it may be that you want to save some of the brand voice for your landing pages or your social feeds and really lean into more clarity in email. Of course, the tease and reveal is gone. I think in the art of the subject line, we always want to have that intriguing subject line that really entices someone to open. And, teasing and revealing, that might not be your best tactic anymore. So there's a lot of other tactics you can use instead. And then pre-headers, they can get twisted in different ways. Still very important because they're offering additional information for these interpretations, which is great. But so we definitely want to keep including them, but just understand that they may not appear exactly as you've written them. Still, accessibility and live text are more important than ever, particularly for those those Apple Intelligence summaries. We saw how important that was. And then keeping that high value action and all of those most important images at the top of your creative, just knowing that your message may be pushed way down on the page, particularly on mobile. So keeping all those things at the top, never more important. And then from a deliverability perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, I really just have two big takeaways. The number one takeaway is test, 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 right? Plug for Inbox Monster. That's how I did it. Literally, I reached out to Laura and said, hey, I'm not a content creator. Can you help me test some of these theories about AI? So test, see how your brand voice is impacted, see how design is impacted. There are a lot of things we can't control, but testing can reveal the things that we can control. Use tools available to you. So again, annotations and schema, we in the deliverability world have been pushing this for a long time because, again, specifically around Gmail promotions tab that people aren't too keen on. It's the way to stand out in the inbox, number one. And number two, you're going to be impacted by automatic extractions anyway. So why don't you just do a little bit more coding and make those emails really shine in the inbox? And then if I could underline one thing from this entire presentation, I think I've said it at the beginning and I'm going to wrap it up in a bow again for the ending. From a deliverability perspective, in this post MPP world in particular, engagement waters are so muddy now. It's been that way for a while, but it's increasingly the case. And so re-engagement needs to happen as a part of a cyclical process. This isn't something that you should be doing once a year before Thanksgiving, right? Or Black Friday. You need to be constantly evaluating who is inactive in your list. And before it gets too long, reach out to them and say, hey, do you still want to be a part of this list? Because again, we might not have the super juicy engagement data that we're used to having. Even clicks at this point with AI are being impacted. So it's on the doorstep currently, and we only think these technologies are going to be adopted more and more greatly in the future. So really start thinking about those engagement-based sending flows.
I love that. And I love the direct approach. And that even can be a moment to build a relationship with someone, to say like, hey, do you want to hear from me? If not, that's totally okay. So I love that idea of it being continuous and it being direct.
Yeah.
Just ask. Well, this is awesome. We do have a couple of questions that I'll toss out here. So one question was, are they pulling the deals from the offer disclaimers? So whenever we were showing some of those codes that were not entirely obvious within the body of the email, I do believe even if they are in the sort of fine print,
Yeah.
and that may be legally required, right? That they are in the fine print. That is where those actual discount codes are coming from. Am I right in saying that, Beth?
From my testing, yes, that's where I think they're coming from, especially the ones, you saw some that are like a bajillion characters. Like, obviously, that's not going to be the thing that's presented in the email for the consumer. Usually that's just behind a click. But yes, I'm seeing it's being pulled from the footer or the like disclaimer area. Again, test. Test this on your own emails, or even look in your own inbox if you're curious. But my suspicion is that's where that content's being pulled from.
Absolutely. And just to mention, so on the Inbox Monster tool, in our previews section, we offer both Apple Intelligence and Gemini. So when we say test, what we've been doing is before pressing send, we're sending to the Inbox Monster tool and seeing how these emails are being interpreted. So I just wanted to make that clear too. It's within our email previews in our creative rendering tool that we're actually doing this testing to figure out what the heck is being pulled out. Another question is, does this play nicely with Salesforce Marketing Cloud? I would say I don't see why not. We're more talking about the final mile interpretation of what's happening in the recipient's inbox and how you can optimize for it. So I think all of this advice is pretty much agnostic of any ESP, or regardless of where you're sending from. I think this advice holds true regardless. So.
Yeah, I wonder if that question was specifically about schema.
Oh, I see.
Maybe and yes, to your point, it is that coding should be ESP agnostic.
Yeah, I can confirm that. Okay, then I have one last question here, or maybe two. Are Gmail annotations available for use cases other than promotions and discounts? Pretty much, I would say no, because you have to be in the promotions tab in order to use annotations. So, any business that would end up in the promotions tab, it would be available for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, is the Yahoo Google link extraction likely to further muddy open data the way Apple MPP does?
I think so. Yeah, that's kind of my whole point. It's not going to be as impactful, right? Like MPP turned on and we saw a huge shift in engagement data. But yes, if there are scenarios where people can get your email content, get codes, or even just read your newsletter without opening or clicking into the email, then yes, we do think this is going to have a big impact on engagement. So the further down that line we get, the more important it is to just continually ask your recipients if they want to continue hearing from you.
Awesome. That's a great point. If there aren't any other questions, I think we can wrap it up. And I just want to thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being such a chatty and lively audience. I loved it. And this was really fun. Maybe Beth and I will just keep testing. We can't stop now. We're out of control, really. Maybe we'll keep testing and have another installment for you. But we do have our contact information here. Like I said, this is like constantly changing. So if you see something different or you have any great ideas, please hit us up anytime. Our contact information is below. So this was really fun. And thank you so much, Beth. It's been a really fun pleasure working with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for all your help with the testing. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Inbox Monster, plug.
Nice. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.